Hello there, and thank you for choosing to spend the last few minutes of your day sitting here with me in this small but peaceful corner. Tonight, we're going to explore one of the most complex ideas in science, the light year. A phrase you've probably heard countless times in documentaries, in articles about the cosmos, or in quiet conversations about distant stars. And yet, most of us only hear it without ever truly feeling what it means. This evening, I'd like to invite you to walk with me, slowly, gently, as we discover what a light year really is. We won't talk through equations or dry numbers, but through imagination, through soft images, through the feeling that we're placing our hand on an endless map of the universe. Because once you understand the distance it represents, you'll realize that the universe isn't just out of reach. It is so vast that it can completely change the way you see your own existence. A light year is not just a number. It is a reminder that some distances lie far beyond all familiar frames of reference. And by the end of tonight's journey, you'll understand why astronomers need this strange unit, and why no other measure is big enough to hold the vastness of the cosmos. If you feel this journey gently touching your curiosity, you can tap like or subscribe. Just a small gesture, but for me, it is a very big source of motivation. And now, let your breathing slow down a little, because we're about to step deeper into a region of space where numbers become light, and light becomes a story. Let's begin with something familiar: distance. You know what distance means in everyday life. You know how far it is to the grocery store, to your workplace, to the neighboring city. Imagine this. You open your front door in the morning and step into the small alley you walk through every day. That alley might only be a few dozen meters long, a distance you never even think about, because your feet know it as well as your heart knows its own rhythm. You walk past the neighbor's fence, hear a motorbike starting somewhere nearby, and the soft morning sunlight touches the still damp road. That distance we measure in meters. Tiny, clear, warm, and familiar. Then you walk farther, to the nearby supermarket, along a street filled with voices calling out, laughter, vendors shouting prices you don't even remember when you first heard. That's a few hundred meters, or maybe a kilometer. The unit of ordinary journeys, of bus rides to school, of tired late afternoons, returning from work. Then you think about a longer trip, to another district, another city. Buses or cars running steadily down highways, long trails of yellow streetlights drifting backward outside the window, those moments when you gaze absent-mindedly out and feel the world slowing down. A few dozen, a few hundred, a few thousand kilometers. In the human world, distance still feels understandable. It may be far, but you can sense. Through memories, through experience, through stories of the roads you've traveled. But if we keep stretching that far just a little more, a completely new kind of distance begins to appear. Imagine standing at an airport, watching airplanes preparing for takeoff, a flight across continents, from Asia to Europe, from Europe to America, over 10,000 kilometers. We sit in the sky for hours, watching the ground below turn into a network of tiny lights, like forgotten stars left behind at our feet. That distance is already large enough to make your heart feel slightly weightless, as if you really are leaving your familiar world. Then we look down at the oceans. The ships of ancient explorers had to cross tens of thousands of kilometers of open water just to find a new continent, a new horizon. A few thousand kilometers, tens of thousands of kilometers. In this realm, every kilometer traveled is a trade-off, a story of life and death, memories written in sweat and sea wind. That is the scale of human life, the realm in which the kilometer, that small measure of distance, is still something we can touch, imagine, and hold in our minds with a bit of effort and a bit of memory. But the moment we lift our eyes to the sky, everything begins to change. Look at the Earth and the Moon. Between them lies a distance of about 384,000 km. a number far beyond any journey we've ever taken. Yet light crosses it in only 1.28 seconds. A blink, a breath, a moment that almost doesn't exist. Then there is the Earth and the Sun, 1 million minus 20 million kamos. This distance is far beyond any human experience. And light, the fastest thing in the universe, takes 8 minutes 20 seconds to travel from there to where we stand. If the sun were to go dark right now, you wouldn't know for another 8 minutes or so. A slight delay in the heartbeat of the cosmos. And right there, when the numbers grow into the tens, the hundreds of millions, human intuition begins to fade. Not because we are weak or lack imagination, but because the human brain was born to understand the field in front of us. The village road leading back home, the stream at the foot of the mountain, not the cold emptiness of hundreds of millions of kilometers where there is no sound, no wind, no stopping point. At a certain moment, at the moment when kilometers can no longer serve as a bridge between us and the universe, they become endless strings of digits, stretching on like lines of text on a roll of paper, with no end. And that is also the moment we are forced to let go of kilometers, to release every familiar measuring stick. The moment we must borrow something that does not belong to Earth, does not belong to humanity, to measure distances the mind cannot carry. That is the moment when light, its speed, its silence, becomes the only ruler long enough to reach the stars. In that very moment, the light-year appears, not just as a unit, but as a doorway, and we, small human beings sitting in front of a screen on a quiet night, need only open it, and the entire universe begins to reveal itself, slowly, gently, vast enough to take our breath away. Now imagine that light is not just a cold, lifeless beam, but a sacred river flowing through space-time. A river with no water, no murmuring sound, yet carrying the rhythm of the cosmos, the way your heart keeps beating quietly through the long night. It weaves through every corner, every speck of dust, every nebula, through the coldest voids, and the strange thing is, this river always flows at exactly one speed, no faster, no slower, nothing can block it, no one can persuade it to change. 300,000 K every second. That number sounds like a fairy tale, because the human mind cannot truly feel what 300,000 K means. But let's soften it a little. Imagine you're standing in front of a map of Earth, placing your finger on the point where you live, then drawing a circle around the entire planet. Light takes just 1 second to run that circle, more than 7 times. In the time it takes you to blink, not even a tenth of a second, light has already slipped from your city across high mountains, over vast oceans, above red deserts, and then back again. It is the greatest traveler the Earth has ever known. No wind can match it. No planet can hold it back. It just goes and goes, as if carrying the universe's hidden stories with it, as if each journey is trying to whisper something to us, even if we only hear it when we are truly still. And what we must remember is this: a light year is not time. Even though it has the word year, it is actually a distance. The distance that sacred river travels in one long year. A year for us is 365 days, a full cycle of change, beginnings and endings, births and farewells, countless moments of daily life. But for light, 1 year is a journey of nearly 10 trillion K, a distance so immense that every human language begins to feel too small to describe it. It's fascinating that history tells of a man who discovered that light does not appear instantly. That, like us, it has to travel, cross space, and spend time to arrive. His name was Ole Romer, a 17th century astronomer whose eyes always seemed to reach beyond what his era allowed. He watched Jupiter's moons, tiny points of light that kept disappearing and reappearing, and noticed something no one had considered. Light arrived late, just a little late, but enough for him to understand that light must travel, not simply be there. From that discovery, a great door opened, and for the first time, humanity realized the universe has rhythm, and light is the drumbeat that keeps time for it all. From then on, whenever we look up at the night sky, we are no longer just seeing stars. We are seeing light that began its journey years, hundreds of years, even thousands of years ago. Some photons left a distant star long before humans ever existed, crossing darkness, cold emptiness, and vast regions of silence just to arrive in your eyes tonight. When we think about that, we see why the speed of light is not just a number on a textbook page. It is the heartbeat of the universe, a rhythm that never skips a beat, the soundless footsteps of the cosmos, walking through billions of years and billions of untold stories. And when we understand light, how it moves, how it carries the past, how it bridges unimaginable distances, we begin to understand why the light year exists. Because no other unit can glide so naturally with light, open wide enough to embrace the universe, or hold steady enough to keep a rhythm that never changes. No kilometer, no mile can do that. Only light, and the light year, can tell the story of the cosmos. A story so vast, it numbs the mind, yet so gentle, it makes you want to close your eyes and listen. And once we've laid our hand on that doorway and felt light seeping through the cracks, the next question rises quietly and naturally. So how far does light travel in a single year? The door slowly opens wider. Our journey continues with a number 9.46 trillion K. This is not an ordinary number. It is like an invisible ribbon, too long for anyone to hold from end to end, too wide for anyone to see in one glance. But if we soften ourselves, slow down, and let our mind drift with the light, we will start to feel that length not by measuring distance, but by measuring time. Something the heart understands better than anything else. Imagine this, 1 million seconds, a number that sounds huge, but actually only lasts about 11.5 days. A stretch of time you can fully remember. The mornings, the afternoons, the sleepless nights, all tucked into a fragile million seconds. Then we take one step further, to 1 billion seconds. Those extra 3 zeros change everything. 1 billion seconds is about 32 years, almost an entire youth. With its journeys, its first tremors of love, its stumbles, its stand-ups, and the dreams that fell asleep along the way. That length of time is something we can feel, grasp, love, regret. Now we widen it further, push it farther. 1 trillion seconds. At this point, numbers stop being our friends. They become a cliff face. Because 1 trillion seconds equals about 31,700 years. Longer than human civilization itself. Longer than any story, any religion, any empire we've ever recorded. Longer than humanity's shared memory. A number so huge our minds can't find any anchor to hold on to. But light still goes, still flows. It glides through that time the way a seemingly endless silk ribbon is drawn across the sky. Now let's return to the original number, 9.46 trillion coppers. We try to express it in our most familiar language. Coppers, the unit tied to every step, every ride, every journey on this small earth. A person walking at a gentle pace might take 10-12 minutes for each kilometer. 1 light year, if we imagine it as all those little kilometers, would be 9.46 kilometers steps. Place one after another. Try closing your eyes and picturing this. Each step is a tiny footprint, glowing faintly in the dark, stretching out into a road that never ends. You keep walking and walking, yet all that appears ahead is night and the light pulling you farther still. To understand that distance, our intuition cannot help us. Human intuition, born to recognize trees, streams, hills, and villages, does not have enough room to hold such numbers. it begins to freeze, like the surface of a lake under the moon. And when intuition is no longer enough, we are left with only one companion that can take us farther: imagination. That is when imagination begins to do the work of light, expanding our world to scales our bodies can never reach. It connects us with what math alone cannot make us feel, with distances larger than any map ever drawn. Imagination helps us see that it's not that 9.46 trillion km is too big to understand, it's that our minds must learn to stretch, to embrace it, like a deep breath releasing itself into the night. Try picturing that number not as digits, but as a soft, endless road, like a strand of a galaxy curling gently through the dark. A road not built from stone or asphalt, but from the very flow of light itself. And you? You are standing at the beginning of that road, watching it fade away into the distance, so far that your eyes can no longer follow. At the far end of that road, there might be a star, a nebula, an unnamed planet, or perhaps only vast emptiness, where light is still traveling and has not yet touched anything at all. And then you realize the number 9.46 trillion km is simply humanity's attempt to describe something far too large to be captured in words. When the mind reaches this level, when numbers are no longer just numbers but become images, sounds, and living things, we begin to understand why astronomers need the light year, because there is no other unit that is wide enough to describe distance, yet soft enough for imagination to step into. The light year is a bridge between science and poetry, between precise measurement and humanity's boundless dreams. It is the place where numbers and feelings blend, allowing us to see the universe not only with our eyes, but with our hearts. At this point, when the vast streams of digits begin to quiet down in the mind, we suddenly realize something very natural. To understand the light year, we don't always have to jump straight onto those endless roads. Perhaps what we need is simply one first step, a very gentle step, a very small unit where our feet and our hearts can stand firmly. Because every grand journey, even the journey of light, begins with a tiny rhythm. And when that thought brushes softly against us, the next chapter of the journey seems to open on its own. Imagine you are standing before a very long ladder, a ladder made of light, where each rung is a unit of time. And we won't rush to the top. We will simply rest our hands on each rung and listen to what it has to say. The first rung is 1 light second, a blink, a moment so brief you almost don't feel it. And yet, in that single second, light has already traveled more than 300,000 K, almost enough to go from the Earth to the Moon and then 3/4 of the way back. Try closing your eyes and picturing this. A tiny point of light shoots up into the sky, and by the time you open your eyes again, it has gone so far that it's already beyond the reach of ordinary human imagination. You ready? That 1 second is as small as a grain of sand, but it holds an ocean of distance inside. The next rung, 1 light minute. 60 seconds, but if we were to stand and watch light move, we would see it pass nearly 18 million kms. Each kilometer is like one steady footstep, and light is taking millions of these steps every second, quietly, without a sound, like a white ribbon wrapping itself around the universe. Compared to the distance to the sun, that number is only a small fraction, like seeing a house from far away and only catching a faint glow through the window. But it is still a distance no ship of ours could cross in a few hours, or even a few days. Then we arrive at 1 light hour. All those thousands of light seconds, gathering into a single, terrifyingly long road that light crosses in exactly 1 hour. And in that time, it can travel about 1 billion chemis. That's when we start brushing up against the farthest edges, reached by probes like Voyager 1, now lingering at the outskirts of the solar system, carrying golden messages from Earth to the cosmos. Each light hour we imagine is a stretch of space that has taken humanity decades to reach. A distance that feels like staring into a black, infinite sea where everything moves slowly except for light. Next comes one light day. When light runs without rest for a full 24 hours, it covers more than 25 billion kms. A distance that makes us realize how pointless it is to compare it to anything familiar on Earth. It's like looking down from a mountain so high that every road, river, and rooftop turns into nameless tiny dots. One light day is something only imagination can hold. Language cannot. Now, let's slow down a little and listen to light delay, the time it takes light to carry information to us. From the moon, light needs only a little over 1 second, which is why every call between astronauts and Earth carries a tiny delay as soft as a single breath. To reach Mars, light needs from 3 to 22 minutes, depending on where the planets are. That means each instruction sent from Earth to a spacecraft on Mars will always arrive late. And every reply, too. Even Jupiter, with its furious spinning storms, is a place from which light needs over 40 minutes to reach Earth. And if we send a greeting to the space around Saturn, light will need more than an hour just to get there. It's strangely beautiful. Space creates natural pauses like the rests in a classical symphony, making the conversation between humanity and the universe slower, deeper, and more thoughtful. All those rungs, seconds, minutes, hours, days, are like small meditation exercises. Each rung stretches our minds a little more. Each rung helps us understand that the universe is not chaotic. It simply operates at a scale our bodies were never trained to grasp. And when we've walked through all those small steps, when seconds become minutes, minutes become hours, hours become days, we begin to see that 1 light year is no longer a frightening number. It becomes the natural destination of the journey, like the moment when you've walked long enough that your body and the road fall into the same gentle rhythm. At that point, the light year is no longer a figure beyond understanding, but a quiet doorway you can open with a single deep breath. And in that moment, we realize that perhaps the most beautiful thing about the light year is not the distance it measures, but the feeling it leaves behind. A feeling that lets us know we are small in the universe, yet somehow still capable of understanding things so great they stretch beyond every limit of the human heart. Now then, once we've understood that we've only just opened the very first door, and behind that door lie countless more rooms of light where every star in the night sky is no longer a lonely dot but a quiet neighbor, always there, just too far for us to hear their greeting, that is the moment when a soft question rises, like a breath. If the light year is the ruler that helps us understand infinite distances, then who are the ones living closest to us in this vast cosmic neighborhood? From that curiosity, a new chapter of the night gently unfolds. If the sun is a warm lamp sitting in the very room where we live, then the nearby stars are like small lanterns at the far end of a long alley, just bright enough to tell us that someone is there, but too faint and too far for us to call out to. The closest star after the sun is called Proxima Centauri, a tiny dim red point, like the oil lamp of a neighbor who lives very simply, about 4.24 light years away. For light, that distance is just a 4-year stroll. But for humans, it is so long that we could be born, grow up, grow old, and leave this world, and still not have walked all the way to their doorstep. Imagine this. If we sent out the fastest spacecraft humanity has ever built, so fast that it once made the entire world marvel, that ship would still have to drift in darkness for thousands of years, across many generations, through countless seasons on Earth, across histories, written and forgotten. The ship would go, carrying our greeting, but sender and receiver might never meet. And that quiet sadness is part of what makes Proxima such a beautiful symbol. The closest neighbor we know, yet still too far for us to knock on their door. Proxima is not alone. Our Milky Way neighborhood also holds Barnard's Star, Wolf 359, Lalande 21,185, and Sirius the brightest star in the night sky. Each has its own orbit, its own story, but together, they create the feeling that we live in a colossal neighborhood, where everything drifts slowly, like little boats on the river of the cosmos. If the night sky is an infinite roof, then the stars are our neighbors all around, always facing us, but so distant that every meeting remains impossible. And then, in the hearts of dreamers, a delicate idea flickers to life like a small flame in a long night. Breakthrough starshot. A vision so bold it sounds like a fairy tale from the future. They dream of light sails, so thin they can float in space, so light that laser beams from Earth could push them forward. Each sail is like a tiny drop of light, blown out of Earth's embrace at up to 20% of the speed of light. If it works, those sails could reach Proxima Centauri in about 20 years. A span of time just long enough for one person to live a full youth. But the voice of tonight's story is never in a hurry. It understands that even though this dream is beautiful, the technical road ahead is as long as the distance to the stars themselves. Those sails would need materials that don't yet exist. Those lasers would require energy that our world is not yet ready to sustain. The whole journey would demand a kind of faith as patient as that of ancient sailors looking at the horizon and saying, "Out there, there is something meant for us." Yet precisely because it is so difficult, this dream becomes gentle in a special way. It reminds us that even though we are small in the universe, humans never tire of reaching for what lies beyond their grasp. Even when distances are endless, we still send greetings. Even when darkness is absolute, we still launch sails of light. And even when we don't know when or if we'll ever reach the homes of those distant neighbors, the very act of dreaming about them already makes our hearts a little wider, a little deeper. And when the story of the nearest stars settles softly, we realize this. To understand the universe, we don't only measure distance with light, we also measure it with our capacity to dream. And that dream leads us to an even more beautiful moment, when we understand that each star in the sky is not just a point of light in the night, but also a fragment of memory sent from a distant past. Right as we're still drifting sleepily through tales of these faraway neighbors, Proxima Centauri, Barnard's star, Wolf 359, these quiet red dots, like embers at the end of the cosmic alley, you might feel your mind slowing down, like a very soft sigh. It's like standing on your doorstep on a still night, watching the shadow of a stranger slowly fade into the dim distance, then disappear. It isn't the disappearance that stirs you, but the feeling that somewhere, in that deep darkness, lives are still unfolding, stories are still continuing, light is still quietly flowing. That moment is so gentle, you almost don't notice it as it happens. Yet it is enough to tilt your thoughts, like a stream of water suddenly turning into a new channel. That is the moment your mind begins to understand. Distance is not only a number, not only light, it is also time. Light, the sacred river we've spoken of since the beginning of this journey, does not just carry distance, it carries pieces of ancient memory. And from here, the door to the next part of the story, the deeper, softer part, opens like a worn page, slowly turning in the whisper of a small breeze. Now try lifting your eyes to the night sky, very slowly, very gently, as if you were looking at something fragile. In that moment, whether you're sitting in a familiar room, lying on a soft bed, or standing outside on a porch where the breeze brushes your skin, what you're seeing is not the present. Every star up there is a piece of the universe's memory, sent out many years ago. The night sky is not a picture of this exact moment. It is a museum of time, where each star is hanging up its own portrait from the past. Let's start with Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. It lies about 8.6 light-years away. That means the light you see tonight left Sirius nearly a decade ago. Imagine this. While you've been living through your own very personal years, perhaps joyful ones, painful ones, or just strings of ordinary days. This light has been traveling from that star, crossing deep space, passing through regions where no sound can follow, just to gently reach your eyes tonight. It has been moving across a distance equal to 8 winters and 8 summers, 8 full cycles of birth and fading that we humans always live through. A little farther away there is Vega, one of the most beautiful stars in the northern sky, about 25 light-years from Earth. If you are 25 years old, the light you see right now left Vega the year you were born. When you took your first breath, knowing nothing of the universe's vastness, nothing of journeys made of light, a photon left Vega, beginning a 25-year voyage through darkness so that tonight it could meet you. You and that photon share the same starting line, a meeting that is quiet, tender, and unbelievably magical. Then there is Betelgeuse, a massive red supergiant nearing the end of its life, perched on the right shoulder of Orion. The light from Betelgeuse needs about 550 years to reach us. When the light you're seeing tonight began its journey, Europe was still in the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci might have been just a boy. Michelangelo had not yet sculpted David. Galileo had not been born. Cities had no electric lights, no digital printers, no telescopes. And yet, the light from Betelgeuse had already started traveling slowly, silently, so that now, in a room of the 21st century, you can look up and see it. Or Polaris, the steady point, to which generations of sailors once turned for guidance. It lies about 445 light-years away. When the photon you see now left Polaris, Shakespeare was sitting in a small room in London, writing his earliest plays. Perhaps he didn't know that his words would live on through centuries, just as he didn't know that the light leaving Polaris at that moment would also be living its own centuries-long journey. Much like his immortal story. This is why astronomers often say, when we look at the night sky, we're not looking at places, we're looking at moments in time. Every star is a time grouper, opening onto a past we can never return to, except through our gaze. Picture this as a kind of meditation. You are walking through a museum with no walls, no ceiling, no doors. You wander along endless corridors, where each painting is a star, and each painting comes from a different year of the past, some from 8 years ago, some 25, some 550, some far older still. The sound of your footsteps in that museum is the heartbeat of the universe, the breathing of time itself. And the most beautiful thing is this: no matter how small we are, the human eye can still hold those distant fragments of memory. We don't just exist inside the universe. We remember it. We understand it. We give names to beams of light from years long gone, as if we were archiving ancient letters the universe has sent from different ages of time. So every night, when you look up at the sky, try letting your heart grow quiet for a moment. Let the light touch you like a gentle reminder. You are walking through a museum of time, where everything arrives late, but nothing is ever truly lost. You only need to open your eyes and look, and the past will find its way to you through its own light. While we are still standing inside this museum of star time, where all light comes from the past and every photon is like a letter delivered centuries late, something very special happens. A moment so subtle, the listener almost doesn't notice it. It is the moment when your mind suddenly wants to know, if all of these are just tiny postcards, then what does the whole city, the whole ocean, the great house that holds them all, actually look like? Like when you stand in a room filled with small keepsakes and quietly wonder, how big must the house be to hold this many memories? And right within that soft, natural turning of thought, the next part of the journey opens up, as gently as a leaf turning in the air as it falls from a branch on a quiet autumn night. Imagine that your mind is holding an invisible camera, slowly turning the zoom ring, and layer by layer, space unfolds beneath the lens. At first, you only see the sun, the small yellow star we always treat as our one essential source of life. But as we pull back farther, very gently, as if opening a window to let the night breeze in, we see that it is just a modest point of light among hundreds of billions of other stars in the Milky Way. The Milky Way, its name already soft, like a river of milk flowing across the sky, is in truth a gigantic structure, about 100,000 light-years across. You don't have to understand that number. You can simply feel it. The way you feel yourself standing before a dark ocean at night, where the horizon never seems to come closer, no matter how long you stare, even light. The fastest thing in the universe must travel without rest for 100,000 years to cross from one side of our home galaxy to the other. We zoom out further and see the spiral arms of the Milky Way spreading wide, like blue ribbons drifting slowly in the dark. Each arm is a place where millions of stars are living out their lives, quietly shining, quietly aging, quietly burning themselves to ash, then giving birth to new generations of stars. Where are we in the spiraled bracelet? Just a small room out in the suburbs of the galactic district, tucked inside a little side branch called the Orion Spur, a tiny alley in a small neighborhood of a vast city made entirely of light. The sun we love so much, though it is everything to life on Earth, is only a small yellow bulb in that endless neighborhood of light. And it doesn't stand still either. The sun is slowly drifting around the galactic center like a patient passenger on a train that never stops. To complete one full orbit of the Milky Way, the sun needs about 220 million years. When it began that journey, Earth was still full of dinosaurs. By the time it finishes a lap, humanity may have vanished, or evolved into something our current imagination cannot reach. Then, when we pull back even more, the Milky Way, the galaxy that once left us breathless, shrinks into a small smudge of light, one among trillions of galaxies scattered across the observable universe. Each of those galaxies holds hundreds of billions of stars of its own. And so, light doesn't simply stretch along a line, it spreads across a vast ocean, rippling and moving in every direction. Seen from afar, the universe looks like a dark ocean without shores, where galaxies are glowing islands drifting gently along the currents of space. But unlike Earth's oceans, this cosmic sea is expanding, like a piece of fabric being pulled wider and wider forever. Galaxies that are farther away drift so quickly that, light fast as it is, will never catch up. That means there are places in the universe we will never see, not because they don't exist, but because the distance between us and them is growing longer with every passing second. That boundary, the limit beyond which light will never reach us, is called the cosmic horizon. But don't picture it as a wall or a sharp line. Imagine it instead as the edge of a foggy ocean. You know the water continues out there. You know the sea doesn't stop. But your eyes can only see as far as the mist is thin enough to let light pass through. Everything beyond that hazy edge, you can only sense, not see. And in that moment, while your mind is floating among countless galaxies, like lanterns drifting in the sky, you suddenly realize each person, each home, each memory, each morning, each smile, are just a very small speck of glowing dust in this vast, misty ocean. A speck that could easily be forgotten, yet carries a rare privilege, the ability to understand where it stands, to know it is small, and still look out at the whole universe with eyes full of wonder. Perhaps that's why, when we stretch our gaze out this far, fear doesn't appear. Instead, we feel a kind of calm. In a space so large that the mind cannot wrap itself around it, our fragile existence suddenly becomes gentle. Gentle like a tiny spark of light, resting within an ocean that breathes in the rhythm of a million stars. While we're still floating in this feeling of being just a speck of light in the misty cosmic sea, something else begins to softly knock at the doors of our thoughts. A very small question, but one that opens up a vast landscape of reflection. If light has to travel for tens, hundreds, thousands of years to reach our eyes, then what happens when humans themselves try to send a greeting out there? This question is like someone tapping lightly on a door at night. Not urgent, not loud, but enough to remind us that in this beautiful, boundless space, sending out a word, a signal, a single question is not nearly as simple as we once imagined. The universe is wide and magnificent, but also cold and quiet, like an endless corridor without a floor. And so, the next part of our journey unfolds naturally, as if we were stepping from a great open hall into a long, narrow passage, where even light takes a long time to walk through. Imagine you are standing beside a tunnel that stretches into infinity. Every word you speak doesn't fly instantly away, but turns into a thin wisp of smoke, drifting slowly into the darkness. It keeps going, going and going, but it will be a long time before it reaches the other end. And when the person far away answers, their wisp of smoke must drift back to you, just as slowly. That is how the universe speaks with us, in trails of light smoke, drifting through a space so vast that our brains almost cannot attach meaning to it. Voyager 1, a small metal box humanity launched into space in 1977, is now incredibly far away, beyond the outer edge of the solar system. And yet, every hello we send to it takes nearly a whole day to arrive. When Voyager 1 replies, "Hello, I'm still here," that signal needs almost another day to return, which means that between us and this little metal traveler out in the dark, there lies nearly 2 days of silence for a single exchange, like two friends sitting at the far ends of the earth, placing tiny paper boats onto the same river and waiting for them to drift all the way to each other. New Horizons, the spacecraft that flew past Pluto, is also now so far away that when it sends its data back to Earth, we have to wait many long hours before the signal reaches the giant receiving dishes. Every image that New Horizons gathers from that icy outer world is like a postcard mailed from a city at the very edge of the map. No road leads there. No flight returns from it. Only light quietly carries the news. And that is still just within our neighborhood, the solar system. Now imagine something far bolder, something that stretches your thoughts one layer wider. If humanity had a colony around Proxima Centauri, the closest star after the Sun, 4.24 light-years away, then every conversation between these two worlds would last longer than an entire childhood. You send a question today, "Is everyone over there okay?" The signal needs 4 years to arrive. The people living in that other star system receive your message after 4 full springs have passed on Earth. They reply with a short sentence. "We're okay, how are you?" But for you to read those 2 words, "We're okay," the light must travel another 4 years back. That means nearly a decade has passed between 2 simple questions, between 2 small nods from 2 worlds. A child born on Earth may already be starting school. An elder around Proxima might be entering a new stage of life. And so, the people there must make every decision by themselves. They cannot wait for Earth's opinion. They cannot call for help in a crisis. Everything must be handled on the spot, like young branches learning to find the sunlight on their own in an unfamiliar forest. The universe is so vast that even a greeting becomes a journey. A single SOS becomes a test of faith. And sometimes, amid that immensity, we ask ourselves, could there be someone out there trying to talk to us? But time has stretched the conversation so wide that we mistake it for silence. That is Fermi's paradox, the famous question. In a universe this big, where is everybody? But perhaps there is another answer, softer, kinder, more in tune with the slow rhythm of tonight. Maybe they are speaking. Maybe they have already sent their signals. Their letters made of light are simply still on their way, still drifting, like a lantern at the end of a foggy road that hasn't quite reached our eyes yet. Maybe we are not alone. Maybe we are just living in the pause between two sentences of a conversation that lasts longer than a human lifetime. And when we understand that, suddenly everything in the universe, both its silence and its whispers, begins to make sense. Light is not only what helps us see, it is also the only pen that civilizations can use to write letters to one another. And because this pen moves more slowly than the distances of the universe itself, every letter that reaches us carries the fingerprints of time. Some letters take hours, some take years, and some will take centuries. But the important thing is, they are still on their way. Just as you, tonight, are listening to these stories. No matter how long the journey, light always finds its path home. And perhaps, somewhere in the billions of light years ahead, someone in an unimaginable distance is also waiting for a greeting from Earth, from us. Now then, let me tell you a very small story, so small it could fit in the palm of your hand, yet powerful enough to shake the way we see the world. When Einstein thought about the speed of light, he discovered something gentle and terrifying. Time is not rigid, it is soft, not fixed, but flexible. It can run faster or slower depending on who is measuring it. Time knows how to bend. Imagine you are standing beside a strange spacecraft, the outside of it glowing faintly, as if dusted with starlight. The ship is about to leave Earth and accelerate, and keep accelerating, until it nears the speed of light. When that happens, time around it will start to flow differently. It no longer moves smoothly and steadily. It becomes like water gently stirred by someone's hand, slowing, stretching. When the ship travels at 99.9% of the speed of light, something almost poetic happens. For those on Earth, 20 years pass. For the person on the ship, only a few light, weightless months go by. If you were the one boarding that ship, you would return to find your friends older. Earth changed. The children you once carried in your arms may now be adults. The roads you used to walk might now be lined with new buildings. And you, the one stepping off the ship, will seem like someone arriving from the future. Science calls this time dilation. But if we look at it through the meditative eyes of tonight, it feels more like a lesson. Time is not something we own. It is something we pass through. Picture the scene as a gentle zoom in a film. The ship gliding through deep, black space. The light from stars stretched into long, soft white threads. Inside the ship, time drips slowly, like honey sliding from a spoon. Outside the ship, millions of events carry on as usual. Flowers bloom, people grow older, cities change color, seasons turn. In this kind of storytelling, traveling near the speed of light stops feeling like science fiction and becomes a form of time meditation, a place where you quietly step out of the familiar current everyone else is moving in and enter a different stream of time, slower, stiller, deeper. And then, just as we're left speechless by how miraculous that is, the universe offers us a gentle reminder. One that sounds cold at first, but is actually very kind. Nothing can outrun the speed of light. That limit humbles us, but it also protects us. Because if everything were allowed to move faster than light, time would shatter, principles would collapse, and the universe would become a place far more confusing than it already is. Ideas like warp drive, wormholes, hyperspace, they are like beautiful dreams. They glitter in the minds of scientists and storytellers like little paper boats drifting down a stream. But no matter how lovely they are, they remain right at the threshold of possibility. We can see them, smile at them, and then gently return to the one boundary we cannot cross, the speed of light itself. Think of it this way. If you could somehow move very close to the speed of light, the space in front of you would begin to shrink, as if someone were softly tugging on the edges of a sheet of fabric. Galaxies that once seemed millions of light years away would suddenly appear closer, and time behind you, back in the place where you started. would be racing forward so quickly, it would almost feel like it no longer belonged to you. You wouldn't just be traveling through space. You would be traveling through the way the world experiences you. And if we pause for a moment to listen, we might feel that this is not so different from an ordinary human life. There are seasons when we move too fast, too far, and when we return, everything has changed in a way that catches in our throat. There are other times when we seem to stand still, and the world rushes past us with alarming speed. Relativity is not just a set of equations, it is a perfect metaphor for the different rhythms at which each person lives. When you move slowly, you see the world grow old quickly. When you move fast, you miss many things along the way. And no matter which pace you choose, time, like light, is strict and gentle all at once. It flows in its own way. In that sense, the universe offers us a soft lesson. Not everyone lives at the same speed, and that's okay. If we look closely, that lesson might be even more beautiful than all our futuristic theories, because it helps us understand each other, love each other, and allow the people we care about to live in their own tempo, without pushing, without pulling. And when you close your eyes for a moment, picturing a spacecraft gliding through the dark, you might suddenly realize that time, distance, and speed, all these complex ideas, are just different ways the universe uses to whisper. Live lightly. Live like light itself, steady, gentle, and always finding your way home. Now come back to your breathing. Slowly, softly, as if light were quietly checking itself before beginning a journey of trillions of kilometers. Feel the weight of your body resting on a surface, maybe your familiar bed, a small chair, or a soft mattress in a room where it's just you in the dark. Then imagine that you are lying on a tiny blue planet, circling an ordinary star among countless other stars, in a vast galaxy that itself is only a speck of dust in the ocean of the cosmos. It sounds simple, but this truth has a strangely calming power, as if you were placing your life back into the exact spot where it belongs, small and sacred at the same time. In the dizzying, wide-angle view of the universe, all the things you've carried with you through the day, pressures, expectations, worries, are still there, but they become like grains of dust. They no longer sit heavily on your chest, no longer grip your mind. Instead, they feel like a bit of sand in your pocket after a day at the beach. You still know they exist, but they've grown light enough for the wind to carry away. And if you look a little deeper, you'll see something beautiful. Human beings are tiny, but we somehow have the ability to measure, understand, and name distances as enormous as light years. A creature, barely a couple of arm lengths tall, living less than 100 years, dares to measure paths that even light needs years to cross. That is not just intelligence, it is courage. It is curiosity. It is the quiet miracle of being human. You might feel your heart soften a little when you think about that. Because even though we are small, we were born with the capacity to look up at the sky and ask, what is out there? That question ties us to every generation that came before us, from the ones who first painted constellations into the night, to the astronomers who send telescopes deep into space. That question is the gentle thread that ties us to the universe, not as strangers, but as part of a vast family of stars. If you listen just a little longer, you'll sense that every journey we've taken tonight, from the narrow alley outside your house, to the edge of the solar system, to our star neighbors, to the speed of light, to relativity, it all leads to the same understanding. We live in a universe far larger than any imagination, and precisely because of that, our existence becomes even more meaningful. Let your mind sink one level deeper. Gently imagine you're looking at your planet from far away, so far that it's nothing but a faint blue dot. From that distance, all the borders, all the arguments, All the things that trouble you today dissolve into the smallness of a single speck. And yet, from that same distance, the light from your world, reflected from oceans, ice, and the glow of cities at night, appears incredibly beautiful, small but beautiful, small but important, small but alive. Then imagine that little point of light drifting in a sky that stretches for billions of light years. A fragile patch of life in a cosmic desert so immense that even light must run for hundreds of thousands of years to get from one part to another. The simple fact that you are here, breathing, present, listening, is already a miracle beyond anything numbers can express. And finally, when you've gone all the way out and all the way back in, when you've seen the beauty of the universe in its vastness and the beauty of yourself in your smallness, let me leave you with a bedtime blessing, as soft as stardust, slipping through the window of your imagination. Let those enormous numbers become a wide blanket spread over the sky above you. Let light years turn into a gentle meditation that lulls your mind. And when you close your eyes, remember this. You are only a tiny speck of dust, but a speck of dust that smiles, a speck that understands the universe that gave it birth, a speck awake enough to look up at the sky and ask the big questions. Sleep deeply, peacefully, like a final photon sinking into the dark after a long, long journey. Love, evermore, and may you wake tomorrow with a heart just a little lighter, as if it has been touched by light from very, very far away.